then what just happened with the 49ers feels like one of those rare moments where an entire narrative flips almost overnight. If you've been following the chatter around San Francisco since the 2025 NFL Draft, you probably noticed that things weren't exactly rosy. Most analysts weren't just cold on the 49ers picks. They were borderline dismissive. People were tossing around crates like candy, talking about missed opportunities, questionable fits, and acting like the front office had suddenly forgotten how to evaluate talent. It was like the energy shifted into full-on skepticism, not just one or two bad reviews. We're talking consensus leveled out. Now let's be real for a second. NFL draft grades have always been more about perception than reality. It's the moment right after all the picks are made, emotions are high, expectations are flying, and everyone feels like they know who hit or missed, even though nobody's played a down of professional football yet. But still, when everyone seems to be piling on your team with CPL yes and minus grades, you start wondering, did we actually blow this thing? And that was the tone. That was the story. The 49ers walked away from draft weekend with 11 new players and a whole lot of doubt being cast on those selections. You didn't see a grades floating around. You didn't see glowing reviews about a masterclass from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. It was mostly shoulder shrugs and head scratching. If anyone gave the team props, it was faint praise at best. But then, here comes the twist. Almost out of nowhere, the tide begins to turn. Some of the same analysts that were lukewarm at best are now revisiting their evaluations. Not everyone, of course, but some heavy hitters in the scouting world have come forward to say, hold on, this draft might have actually been excellent. And one of the most surprising voices in that conversation, Tony Pauline. For those who don't know, Pauline is a veteran draft analyst with a reputation for doing deep pre-draft work. He's not just a hot guy, he breaks down film, studies tendencies, and really gets into what teams are trying to build. So when he steps up and gives the 49ers a grade after the dust has settled, it's worth paying attention. We're talking about someone who openly praised the vision of the front office, who outlined why he thought their selections weren't just solid, but potentially transformative. He didn't just go, yeah, they had a decent draft. No, he laid it out with examples, with positional breakdowns, with reasons why this class might be one of the better ones we've seen from the franchise in recent years. Now, to be fair, he didn't sugarcoat everything. He had one real critique, and it's one that's been echoed by fans and analysts alike, and that was the pick of Upton Stout. That selection did not land with him. While some, myself included, have spoken highly of Stout's potential, Pauline wasn't sold. Concerns about size and durability came up, and honestly, those are fair points. Stout is a smaller player for the role he's projected into, and his aggressive physical play style naturally raises questions about how well he'll hold up over time. Injuries, wear and tear, those are legitimate worries, but that was it. That was the only real downside he listed. Everything else in his breakdown, pure fire for San Francisco. He spotlighted the 49ers' commitment to rebuilding and reinforcing the defensive line, and for good reason. This draft class went hard in the trenches early, and Pauline absolutely loved it. Defensive linemen Mike Williams, Alfred Collins, and C.J. West, those three names got a lot of love. According to Pauline, the 49ers didn't just find bodies to plug into gaps. They landed impact players, guys who bring versatility, explosiveness, and real upside. Let's start with Mike Williams. Now, this pick drew mixed reactions across the board. Some loved it, some hated it, but Pauline, he's firmly in the love it camp. He pointed to Williams' upside, his raw athletic traits, and the glimpses of dominance we saw from him last season. He's young, still developing, but Pauline sees that as a good thing. In his view, the ceiling is sky high, a guy who with a little physical maturity could grow into a nightmare for opposing offenses. That's not a casual compliment. That's a pretty massive statement about potential. And here's where it gets interesting. If you're looking at the 49ers defensive front, there's a very clear shift happening. They're not just looking for guys who can clog up gaps and play solid run defense. They're targeting players with versatility, players who can move, adjust, and disrupt. And that's exactly where Alfred Collins fits in. This was another name Pauline singled out with praise. He acknowledged that Collins needs to add some strength to truly maximize his impact. But the upside is there. The frame, the distribution of snaps across different alignments, the football IQ, all of it points to a guy who can become a key rotational piece or even a starter down the line, not a specialist, not a one-trick player, a guy who can move around and contribute in a lot of ways. And for a defense as complex and aggressive as San Francisco's, that's gold. Then there's C.J. West, and man, the enthusiasm here was real. Pauline described him as an immovable object, someone who made plays in college, and then continued to impress during Shrine Bowl practices, not just a gatekeeper but a disruptor. Someone with pass rush upside, which let's be honest wasn't exactly how most people were labeling him right after the draft, but Pauline dug in. He pointed to the explosiveness, the power, and that speed-to-power ratio. And now we're talking about West as someone who might not just make the team, but might carve out a real role early. Maybe even more exciting than Collins, at least in the short term, and that's saying something. Moving to the linebacker position, there's the Nick Martin pick. Another selection that raised eyebrows at the time. Some people thought it was a reach in the 3rd round, but again Pauline saw things differently. He talked about Martin's athleticism, his sideline and speed, and the violent way he plays the game. This isn't a guy who shies away from contact. He's aggressive, he blitzes well, and here's the kicker. Pauline actually compared his play style to Dre Greenlaw's. That's huge. Greenlaw was such a key piece in this defense, and losing him in free agency left a noticeable hole. So to hear someone suggest that Martin could eventually fill those shoes, or at least mirror that type of impact, that's a big deal. Not just a body to fill a depth chart, a true potential starter. Then shifting to the offensive side of the ball, things only get better. Pauline went out of his way to praise to latter-round picks as outright steals wide receiver Jordan Watkins and running back Jordan James. Let's start with Watkins. The guy's got vertical speed, reliable hands, and the only thing he really needs is refinement in route running. That's coachable. That's something you can polish up in camp. And if that's the only knock, that's a pretty clean scouting report. You're talking about a player who could step in and make contributions relatively early, especially in an offense that thrives on spacing and timing. As for Jordan James, Pauline's take was clear. This guy can flat out ball. He called him a violent runner and a skilled pass catcher. And if you've been paying attention to how the 49ers use their running backs, especially behind Christian McCaffrey, you know they're looking for dual threats. Not just someone who can run between the tackles, but someone who can line up, catch passes, and handle blitz pickups. That's what makes McCaffrey so dangerous, and while James obviously isn't at that level, the fact that he fits the mold is exciting, especially when durability becomes a concern late in the season. And let's be honest, the depth behind McCaffrey hasn't exactly been bulletproof. So if James can slot in and contribute both on the ground and through the air, that's a massive boost. Even the final group of picks, which usually get glossed over by national analysts, got some shine. In Pauline's breakdown, players like defensive back Mara Siegel, quarterback Curtis Rohr, and return specialist Junior Bergen. All of them earned positive marks, not just filler picks. Not just warm bodies to fill camp reps. These were guys Pauline believes could stick, could play roles, could contribute. And that speaks volumes about how deep this class really is. Now, yes, he did note one area where he felt the team fell short. And again, it's not a shocker, the offensive line. Pauline wished the 49ers had addressed that unit earlier in the draft. It's a valid critique. It's one we've all heard before. But even with that caveat, he still awarded San Francisco a grade overall. That's right, an A. For a draft class that was initially dismissed by most of the media as average at best. That's not just a regrade, that's a reevaluation of the entire strategy. That's someone saying, you know what, the vision was clearer than I thought. The plan made more sense than it seemed in the moment, and look, none of this guarantees success. We all know how this works. Draft picks are projections, not promises. But the fact that respected voices are coming back around and saying, hey, maybe this was actually one of the better drafts this year, that's got to fire you up. Because it means something clicked. It means there's recognition for what the 49ers are building. It means there's potential here. Real, tangible, exciting potential. And if you're a fan of this team, how could you not be amped about that? So here we are digesting all this fresh energy around the 49ers draft class. And honestly, it feels like a breath of fresh air. Because let's face it, the way the narrative was going just weeks ago had a lot of us on edge. Doubts creeping in about the direction of the team. Questions about whether the front office was hitting on the right guys, or just settling for whoever was left on the board. But now seeing these positive takes, especially from someone like Tony Pauline, it's hard not to feel a surge of optimism. When you think about it, the real magic of this shift in perception is that it's grounded in the details. Pauline didn't just throw out vague praise, he got specific. He talked about how the defensive line picks weren't just about raw talent, but about fitting into the scheme that Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff want to run. That's crucial, because we know the 49ers defense is complex. It demands Players who can be flexible, who can move around, who can cover gaps and disrupt passing lanes without getting blown up by blockers. And that's exactly what Mike Williams, Alfred Collins, and CJ West bring to the table. What excites me most is that this group isn't just built for the now. These are guys who can grow into stars over the next couple of years. Think about that for a second. A draft class where the first 3 picks might all be starters in the near future, maybe even all-stars. That kind of foundation can set a team up for sustained success. It's not just about patching holes this year, it's about building a legacy. And then you have the linebacker Nick Martin, who might be that versatile, explosive guy we desperately need to replace Dre Greenlaw. The fact that Pauline sees parallels between their styles tells you that the front office wasn't just throwing darts. They had a plan to find someone who could step into a very specific role and perform it at a high level. That's smart drafting. On the offensive side, the hype around Jordan Watkins and Jordan James really rounds out the picture. Watkins' speed and hands give Shanahan a weapon to stretch the field and create mismatches, even if his route running isn't perfect yet. That's something that coaches can refine. And James, well, if he can catch like McCaffrey and run with that same kind of tenacity, he could be a game changer in how the 49ers manage their backfield workload. Durability is always a concern, especially in a high-contact position like running back, so having a player who can contribute both on the ground and through the air can extend the life of the offense. What's interesting about all this praise is that it highlights the importance of fit over pure talent. Shanahan's system is famously complex and demanding, and not every player fits into it. But this draft class, it looks like the front office zeroed in on players who not only have talent, but also have the right mindset, versatility, and physical traits to thrive in that system. That's a huge deal. Now, obviously, there are still question marks, injuries, development curves, how these rookies adjust to the speed of the NFL. All of that still matters. But when you start with a class that analysts are calling one of the best drafts of the year, that's a fantastic position to be in. It gives fans hope, and it gives the coaching staff options as we count down the days to rookies report. Just 19 days out, by the way. This positive reassessment feels like a turning point. It feels like the moment where the doubt starts to fade and the excitement builds. It's the kind of momentum the 49ers need, especially after a season that left some questions unanswered. So if you're a 49ers fan, buckle up. The pieces are coming together. The front office has made their moves, and now it's up to the players to step up and prove the doubters wrong. With this kind of draft class, the future looks brighter than it did just a few weeks ago. And honestly, that's all you can ask for, to feel like you're heading in the right direction, with a plan, with talent, and with hope. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are growing louder in the Bay Area as rumors swirl around an unexpected ripple within the San Francisco 49ers locker room. The high-profile acquisition of edge rusher BRYCE HUFF, once hailed as a major coup for the franchise, may not be sitting well with everyone behind closed doors. According to internal sources, the integration of HUFF into the team's defensive scheme is proving more complicated than initially anticipated, and some are beginning to question whether he truly fits the mold of a classic 49ers defender. HUFF, known for his explosive pass-rushing ability during his time with the New York Jets, was expected to bring fresh energy and aggression to a defensive unit already stacked with talent. But murmurs from within the organization suggest that not everyone agrees with the fit. Some insiders claim HUFF's skill set doesn't align with the 49ers' traditional defensive philosophy, which values versatility, run-stopping discipline, and schematic adaptability, qualities that critics argue HUFF has yet to fully display. There's even talk that the front office may not have been entirely aligned on the decision to bring HUFF aboard. While some members of the coaching staff reportedly pushed hard for his signing, others are now said to be voicing concerns that the move was more about making a splash than addressing a real need. Behind the scenes, tension is said to be mounting, with questions arising about how much input the defensive coaching staff truly had in the deal, and whether HUFF's presence could disrupt the cohesion of a finely tuned defensive unit. Fans have yet to see how this plays out on the field, but one thing is clear: HUFF's arrival, rather than being a seamless upgrade, has introduced an unexpected layer of intrigue in Santa Clara. Could the 49ers be facing early signs of internal division just as they prepare for another Super Bowl run? It's too early to tell. But in the high-stakes world of the NFL, Even the smallest cracks can quickly become full-blown fractures. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.